Hi, welcome back to episode 6 of the Trial by Jennifer podcast series. My name is Jennifer Butterfield, your host, and I'm very excited to welcome this week's guest, my friend Kevin Garinger, onto the show. And Kevin, welcome. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. And,
okay.
Yeah.
I moved to Austin about 15, 18 years ago. And lived in my little sister's 600 square foot apartment on the couch with a full-time job. I worked from home at that point. It was way before COVID and anybody knew what work from home was really yet. Yeah. And I lived on her couch for it was only going to be, I think our agreement was like 2 or 3 months, and I ended up there for 6 months or maybe even a year.
Hope you were taking out the trash.
I was taking out the trash, and I was splitting rent with her, which was kind of funny because I think rent was like $400.
Oh my gosh!
So we were living super lean.
Ugh.
And sleeping on the couch, and I had my dresser drawers in the back of my Toyota, so that was my room. Like I didn't invade her too much,
right?
You know. And it was kind of funny, siblings, like you wouldn't think you'd be able to live together like that, but we dealt with it pretty well. We actually had a pretty good time. But man, lived like super lean for almost a full year, and then a friend of mine invited me to come live in an apartment with him. We found an apartment off of Stasny, Little Texas Lane down there. It's called Regency Park, and we got a 2-bedroom apartment there, which back then was, I think it was like $900.
Wow.
It wasn't very, it wasn't very much. But we lived there for several years, and I actually had several different roommates through that apartment, and I just kept the same apartment. And like I said, I worked from home, so I was sitting there in my window, my office window, quote unquote, which is in my room, just looking at the same volleyball court and the pool, and go down there at lunchtime and swim or whatever. And then after living there for 3 or 4 years, I think, I finally found a house down in southeast Austin, kind of over by where Coda is. And it was bulldozer ready. I mean, it was, it was a piece of junk. I mean, so it was a 1930s house that they moved out of Austin and down there onto 5 acres in the 70s. And there was probably more than 5 acres back then. But in the 70s, and they added on to it. And so, but then the couple that lived there, got to know them really well after I purchased it. I got to know them real well. They brought up 4 kids in the house. They lived there for 22 years.
Wow.
And they had been divorced when they sold it, or they hadn't been divorced yet, but they had been separated for like 5, 6, 7 years before that. So it was just the 2 of the younger kids who was 18, one was 18, one was 21, who were living there. So it was not upkept. There was nothing was mowed, nothing was, the HVAC didn't have the filter changed at all. They had, I think, 2 pit bulls that lived there too. And so all the carpet was like messed on and everything. So it was ready to be bulldozed.
You got it for a steal.
I got it for a steal.
Yeah.
And
that was 10 years ago.
That was 2012. Yeah, so 11 years ago.
11 years.
Yeah, 11 years have been in the play.
Wow.
It feels like it's been longer than that, though. I feel like I got...
Well,
anyway.
Austin's changed so much, I'm sure, right? It's like, I feel like, and knowing the location of where you are, like, just kind of keeps receding closer and closer and closer.
The residential creep is coming down.
Yeah, and you're like right on the city limit of Austin.
It's called the extra jurisdictional area. So
Whoa.
It's got an actual term, yeah. It's in the county, and it's all, my address is in the city, but I'm not technically in the city, so we can like
You get utilities.
We get utilities out there.
But you can shoot stuff.
But we can shoot stuff.
And light stuff on fire when the burn ban's
Don't light stuff on fire when there's burn. But fireworks.
No fireworks yet.
No fireworks yet, yeah. So stuff like that, like, pool out there, and like just you can dig wherever you want to pretty much. I mean, it's a lot of fun. We have a good time out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bought that a while ago. So I've been sitting on that for a little while. And that's probably, I planted 25 trees, and the first one I planted was when my grandfather passed away, and it was like this big, and now it's like
big.
25 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge, and the other ones are all doing the same thing. But
and see, I'm like already getting excited about some of the things that we're going to talk about in this episode, because it sounds so sustainable and simple. Like the simplicity of it, you don't hear people talking about that and it being just so streamlined. Like this was the timeline, and then I bought this house and I've been there and this is who I am, you know, and it's like I plant trees, you know. I'm like, love it. I love this, the whole thing. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. And I asked all of my guests this question. I think it really, like, it can be a vulnerable topic, but, you know, for me growing up, we were on like a single parent income and commission based, and when things were good, they were really good, and we bought everything that we needed, and very quickly, you know, things would dwindle financially, and then, you know, when they were tight, we were like, do we have to light the candles tonight, or like, you know, like until the next, you know. So I'm curious, what was the conversation like in your home growing up around personal finance and money?
I don't know that there was like a definite conversation about it, but there was definitely like we didn't really get allowance. Like I would help Dad mow the lawn, and then I'd get, you know, $2 for that, or something like that. It was always based on the work that you were doing.
You earned it.
Yeah, it was always earned income. It was never really given to you.
Right.
And like I said, I don't think my parents and I specifically had like discussions about finances coming up or anything like that. My grandfather was a huge influence, though. He was really big into saving and save up for what you want and then buy it instead of buying it and then paying the debt.
Right.
So he was a very influential part of, hey, don't buy something until you have it, until you have the money for it, you know?
So, okay, and you were one of...
Four.
Okay, and where were you you were the oldest?
I'm the shortest one, but I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest, so you were the oldest one out of four, and then the grandfather you're referring to, is that mom's dad or
Mom's dad.
Dad's dad?
Yeah, mom's dad. He worked for, he was in the Air Force for a while, and then he worked for the Pentagon for like 20-something years in intelligence stuff. I mean, he's got like a 007 stories that were really fun to hear.
That's rad.
It was so cool. It was so cool to hear. And that's what he talked, and he's always been into the stock market. He had an investors club when he retired in Georgetown. They retired just north in Georgetown, bought a house up there. And he had an investors club with like 4 or 5 friends, and they would pool money together and, hey, what are we going to get invested in? And then he also did free taxes for anybody at the library during tax season. So he and his staff...
That has a special place in my heart.
Oh, gosh.
Having worked in tax law for years, but also just because I see how much taxes stress people out.
They really do.
Yeah, and like I remember the first time I got a check and I saw how much taxes were taken out of that
Scary.
income. It's like, man, right, like death and taxes, right?
Oh man, you can always count on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so yeah, I love that your grandfather was an influential part growing up, and as far as like building upon these influential sources around money and learning about personal finance, was there anybody else or anything else, if you will, that was impressionable on you?
I think just the really big impression I got was living lean.
Yeah. And
that's why I started the house story with living on my sister's couch.
Yeah.
We lived lean for a while, and I saved up and saved up and saved up and saved up. And so I wasn't going out like every day and eating out all the time and buying the new, I play harmonica and trumpet, and so I'm not buying the new doodads and like the new amp for this and the new thing for this. I like lived bottom until I had enough to jump into something and start investing in stuff, and that's why I talk about that. But also when I was in high school, one of my first jobs, I mean, everybody's first job when you're in high school as a male is to mow the lawn, you know. Like, so, you know, not to be gender specific, sorry.
No, but, I love it.
But that was our thing, was like, all of my friends, we would
Go hustle and mow lawns?
Well, we all mowed our family's lawn. We would that was my job, was to mow the lawn on Saturdays, and then his dad would get his lawn mowed by my friend, you know, and the whole thing. So it was all kind of a thing, and then we all learned that, oh, okay, well, we can do this, and we don't have to. There's no overhead really. I mean, you don't realize that when you're that young, but you're like, hey, I've got a lawnmower, let's just go make some money. You know, that's what you're thinking of, and there's really no overhead. And like we did, I guess when I was really a little younger than that, do the lemonade stand. That kind of gives you an idea of like how you know, entrepreneurial
thank spirit. You. There it is.
Yeah, spirit. So
I love that. So you learned from experience.
It was more experience.
Put it into practice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and then I was in high school. I was kind of a super nerd. I was in the band, so I didn't have like.
I was in the choir. So.
Oh well, there you go. So right there. Our choir kids were way cooler than the band kids, by the way.
As long as you weren't in orchestra.
Yeah. Because that's a little too far. But no, I didn't we didn't go out to, like, my friends and I in high school didn't go out to movies or go to concerts all the time or any of that stuff. And even when we did, it was like once a month or once every a little bit. It wasn't very often. And so what I learned was the money I was making, I was a lifeguard.
I was a lifeguard too. 15 to, gosh, I mean, all the way into my early 20s sometimes.
Oh man, yeah, I went back several times. But I worked the way up. Were you ever a manager?
Yeah, I was, and I taught open water and
I did water
lifeguard
aerobics.
Instruction, and then I did water safety with adults and kids. I loved.
I was the swim team coach.
Oh my gosh, that's a big deal.
for toddlers through the toddlers that would like go across this pool through teenagers. So I had 16, 17-year-old swimmers. So I had the whole thing. It was crazy.
Well, and the ages too. I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but that was one of the best summer jobs. And I honestly, I think back fondly because I lifeguarded at Barton Springs for probably 5 years.
Oh wow.
In my early 20s, and I think that probably was the best job I'll ever have in my whole life. I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't go back for the money, but I would say that man, those days just sitting out on stand, in the fall and the spring when it's not super crowded and it's still warm.
Yeah,
but
you get a tan, you get your shift done, and then you get in the pool and
then
have
you go
some lunch.
Swim,
Yeah,
go to the bar. I mean, we did the whole thing. But anyhow, well, that's cool. So when you were getting paid, right, and we're starting to get
a check coming in,
checks, or even when it was cash, and you're a minor, so it's you're not filing taxes at that point. It's probably less than 10 grand or whatever. But was there any inclination to spend impulsively, or because there was this? I worked for the money growing up. There was this. Okay, I have to use this wisely because I'm not going to get this allowance or
exactly. Well, and that's the thing is during those summer months, that was the only time I was really working. So I would build my bank account during the summer months, but my goal was to purchase a car.
Right.
And so I wanted to save up so that I could get the best car that I wanted.
Which was?
Well, I ended up with a. And here's the other thing is I'm pretty frugal. So I went to the local car. It's called the CAN Academy, Cars for Kids, and it's a donation based. So people donate their car, they get a tax write off for it, and then they take it to auction, and people buy these cars in auction. And so my first car was an F-150 short bed Ford. It would. I mean, it just it was a rough and tumble. But that's why I wanted it, was because it was. I could beat it up. Yeah. It's not new. I didn't have to. I didn't have to worry about repairs to it. It was kind of just some people that don't like Ford
right.
disagree
will make
with
a
me.
Comment, right?
Yeah, they'll make a comment about it. But it was, man, that was an awesome. And so I went down to the auction. I saved up for a full year, and I went down to the auction and got this thing. My dad ended up kind of chipping in for it, even though I had enough for it. He was like, I want to help you with your first car.
I want you to help. It's a rite of passage in a way.
Exactly.
A little bit.
Yeah, Dad wanted to be involved in it. So he helped me out, and we ended up getting this truck. And it was kind of funny because I couldn't get it inspected because it didn't have all the right stuff, and we had to donate it back to Cars for Kids. But it was in his name because he bought it at the auction. So he got the tax write-off for it, and we actually made money on it because the tax write-off, the percentage that you get written off for the money that they think it's worth, you know, was more than what we spent on it. So we actually made money on it, which is kind of like,
what?
They quit doing that.
That's wild.
They quit doing that. Yeah, we didn't think that was going to happen. We didn't know that was going to happen.
Right, it just worked out that way.
It just ended up working out that way.
That's what hard work and clean living earns, right?
Well, you need to do your research to figure out like those little loopholes, you know, to do. But that was a loophole that we didn't even know about when we found out about it.
With taxes, they're all over the place.
Oh, they're all, yeah.
You know, which I mean, I think that's the thing that is so daunting about the whole thing. But okay, so we talked about the house, the acreage, whenever it was being purchased, right? So tell me a little bit about like what goes into maintaining it and like what kind of things that you've done to create like more sustainability to make it a pleasant place to live, and what that looks like. I mean, because there's been periods of my life where I've lived on a plot of land near Austin, like on the outskirts, and I remember we would play this game of like, how long can we go without having to leave the land kind of a thing, you know? And it's like, okay, well, let's put together these rice dishes with, you know, whatever, and, you know, just put things in a pot. And I'm just, you know, I think there's this certain element to sustainability that I'm curious about. And, you know, do you have any tax exemptions because of all of that? So can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'll start at the beginnings, which really helps out because it was bulldozer ready, but I didn't have the money to take this house down and start from scratch.
Right.
I had about $25,000 that I had saved up to put into a house that I knew needed work, and this one definitely obviously needed work. And here's where friends and family come in. I rebuilt that house specifically with my friend Stoney Gable, which I'm on one of his radio shows, by the way.
Shout out
to
Stoney.
Stoney at Trop Rock Radio. But he very handy fella, and his lease was up north. What is that place called? Riata. He lived in an apartment in Riata. He had a dog and everything. He's a country guy. He's from Kansas, but he's very handy. And I was like, well, I just bought this house right after I bought it. I was like, and it's going to need a lot of work, and I know that. But my lease isn't up for another 4 months, you know, at my apartment. So I'm just going to live out here. You're welcome to live here, and I'll just you can live here for free, which is not saying a lot because it was almost like camping in a house, you know?
Like you're on your own kind of.
Kind of, on your own.
You gotta make it what it needs to be, I guess.
And that's what he did. That's what he loves doing anyway. I mean, we had utilities, we had water, and it's got a septic tank, so, you know, you gotta take care of that and stuff. But he started out with that, and he would go to work during the day and then come home, and on the weekends and stuff, I would meet him over there, and we ripped a wall out, and then we had another project doing this, and then my mom and dad and my little sister would come over and we scraped popcorn off the ceiling. So I had my own little workforce, like that I paid with like beer and pizza, which I know doesn't.
It's fun when you do it together.
But when you're doing it together, we have like a
and
cookout.
All have your own values that are similarly rooted in this idea of like, how awesome can we make it without spending any money, right? And I think that's like the game for me at this point. Like, how cool can this get, or what can I do, and not
add value without paying for it.
And like save the money and see the money and watch it grow, you know, but still have this thing. Yeah, so we're on the same page there.
Oh, man. So
how long did that take?
It's still going right now. But I'll tell you some of the different like specifics that we did to it. After he did a lot of work just getting it livable, pretty much. And I had to get a construction loan with an adjustable APR on it just to buy the house because a bank wouldn't even go in on it for me. With me, and the adjustable started out at 7%. This is back then. It was horrible.
Wow.
It was horrible. So we had to get it livable and up to a bank standards so that I could transfer it to a regular loan. Right. And once I transferred it to a regular loan, it was like 3% or something like that. And that's a 30-year loan and everything. But Stoney specifically, I was kind of his helper. I mean, but he definitely was a huge catalyst to doing that. And then once I got it livable, when I refinanced it, I already had equity in the house. So I took equity out of the house and when I refinanced it and got brand new windows. It had single pane windows in it. I got brand new double pane windows with the, the argon filled. Like I went ahead and spent some money on those and did the siding.
That'll bring your utility bill.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
And I did the siding around it too, and that'll bring your utility.
Pays for itself over time.
It pays for itself over time. It's dollar for dollar investment into the house. And then the last thing that I did, the big thing that I did, well, not the last thing, I'll tell you that here in a second. But right after that, I put the biggest solar panel you could put on a house that size, and I had to get a contract with with Blue Bonnet Electric. And so back then they didn't kind of know solar was kind of new.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And they didn't know exactly how to price gouge us.
Yeah. Right.
So when I put that on there, I basically put it on there, and it rolls the meter backwards, and it's dollar for dollar. Now they figured it out, and they will charge with new solar panels. You can put, and they limited the size that I could put on there, but. Now they figured it out, and you can put as big a solar panel as you want on it, but they're going to charge you retail, and they're going to pay you wholesale. Man. So there's a difference in that, and that really irked me when I heard that they did that to the consumers. That feels criminal. I think it's questionable.
It's not cool.
Yeah,
it's unethical for sure, if not
definitely
illegal. But I mean, and it's so funny because it's like, isn't the initiative supposed to be rooted in we're, getting cleaner energy, right? Yep. Like we're not relying so much on fossil fuels and whatever, and so shouldn't that be the principle? Not here, let's do the profit margin.
I mean, that's what the government said. And that's the other thing is that when I put that solar panel up there, I got a third of the cost of the solar panel as a tax credit, and that tax credit I could carry forward until I was paid the full thing back. Nice. So that was huge. That is. And then water tanks on the back. I put the city of Austin, I don't know if they still do this. I should have researched this before I got on here, sorry. But you guys can research it if you need to. But the city of Austin has a huge initiative for rain barrels and that type of stuff. Yeah. And they will pay half of a system as long as it's up to the Austin city standards. Right. So if you've got a pump on it, you've got to have a backflow valve on it and stuff like that. So I put the biggest ones I could find on there. Right. 2,500 gallon jugs on the back end of the house, just right behind the house, which actually helps keep the house cool because it blocks the sun.
That's nice.
On that side of the house.
Wow.
And I don't have a pump on or anything. It's all gravity fed, but it feeds the 25 trees that I planted. So it keeps those trees alive in heat like we've got.
Yeah, for those who are tuning in, it's 106 every day this week or something here in Austin, which is...
And has been for the past 30 days.
Yeah, it's excruciating. I'll be ready for that,
Don't one blast.
Fall breeze that will come in the rain. Yeah, I mean, anything really would be awesome. But, okay, so all of this is great. And I'm thinking, okay, so when you say you got a tax exemption or deduction, are you talking on income tax or property tax?
That was a income tax. That was a federal income tax credit, and the difference is a credit, you get that back, the whole thing back. With a discount, it's kind of the terminology. I can't remember the terminology.
Step up in basis? No.
No, I can't remember the terminology, but. So there's tax deductions and tax credits and there's all these different type of tax tools that you can use to decrease your taxes. So a tax deduction would decrease the amount that you say that you earned for the year, which makes your tax lower. But a tax credit, they give you that money and the whole thing.
Got it.
So it's all coming to you.
Got it.
So this one was a $12,000 tax credit, and so my taxes that I had paid in for the year, I got the whole thing back, and then the next year I got the whole thing back again.
Nice.
So I didn't pay taxes for 2 years because I just got the check back. Yeah.
So are you W-2 or 1099, W-4? Both. Okay, wow.
I've got 2 different things going on. I'm a senior computer programmer for a full-time big umbrella company called TELUS.
W2?
W2. And then I get 1099s. I play music on the weekends and at night.
Get those little.
And I get every now and then.
Go around.
Yeah. If I make more than every now and then I used to. I don't get to play with her very much anymore. But Brie Bagwell was the biggest artist that I was playing with pretty frequently, and she finally sent me a message. This was a little while ago, and she was like, "Okay, you made more than I can sweep under the table, or whatever." No.
Here you go. No, of course she wouldn't, but
she wouldn't do that.
We're gonna have but that's good. She was honest, right? She came forth and was like, "Okay, this is
I'm gonna have to 1099.
This is where the line is, right?
This is where the line is. I'm gonna have to 1099 you. And I was like, really?
1099 here is like a thing.
Yeah. So she sent me a thing, and I had to claim taxes on that and stuff. But there's deductions that you can do as a musician to offset that, so that you don't actually have to pay taxes on that. It's just hard to find those loopholes, and a lot of musicians want to avoid that.
I mean, if you make
just because it's hard to think of.
If you do a full time, you could do an S corp under an LLC too. Over time, but that's a whole thing.
I'm sure she's super smart, and she's really good about keeping her music business all in. I'm not all that great at it.
Yeah, totally. In terms of straightening out the financial aspect. That's awesome. Promotion, right? I think so. August 22nd, you can hear Kevin and our dear friend Ashley play music here in Austin, Texas, live at the Saxon Pub on South Lamar, and they'll be going on. Do you know what time?
I think it's at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, and tickets are $15 online, and probably a little bit more at the door if it doesn't sell out. But that's a Tuesday.
Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, and the artist before, I think her name's Bear. She might be playing after. Is really good as well.
Awesome.
I just know that person, but there's an artist before and an artist after.
Perfect.
So a full night of
of music. And so I mean, if you're listening to this as it's airing, definitely if you want something fun to do on the 22nd, that's what's going on.
An early show. Put it on your calendar.
Okay, so I'm having a look at my notes here because we typically record them on virtual, but I'm loving this in person. I think this is the first one we've done. The setup's perfect.
Well, I work from home, so I've got to get out of the house.
Right, right. Okay, so in terms of and I guess we'll kind of take a bite into consumer culture here, but what are some things that you see other people doing that you don't necessarily participate in, unnecessary spending or purchasing products or things like that?
Okay, well, I've got two kind of examples. I'm just going through finances with a couple of really close people with me. One thing is these subscriptions to Hulu and Netflix and Spotify.
How often are you using that?
That's what.
Do you know what this Apple charge for $2.99 is?
Yeah.
And, it's come up 3 times, or what's going on?
What did you do there?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was happening.
Or I have 3 Netflix accounts. Why?
That's
right? I see that a lot too.
I've seen that too. Yeah. But if you're not watching it, just and what is there anything good on Netflix anymore? I don't think. I
don't watch TV.
I see. I've given up on.
Although everybody should check out my YouTube channel if you haven't subscribed, please do. But I will say aside from my what I'm producing in terms of my content, I'm not I have stuff I'm doing. I don't know. I haven't owned a TV in 15 years.
Oh man, I've got one in every room.
I know you do. Oh my gosh.
But I've got to have background noise. I've just got to have it.
Right.
I don't know why. I'm just that type.
But I don't know if there are good things on Netflix, but I think the question is are you using it?
Are you
right?
using it?
Is it something that adds value to your life? Is the value that it's adding to your life worth the money you're paying for it?
Exactly.
And if not, why does it still show up? You know, is it just that you aren't taking the time to cancel it, or what? What else?
And gym memberships are a huge thing because they suck you in, and they're really good at I mean, consumer culture. It's just they make you believe that you have to have it. It's a need. You need it. You need it. It's not a want. And that's what I've realized is trying to redefine that in your brain with certain people is very, very hard for them.
So difficult, especially when it comes from the parents that raised you and their parents, and so you're
and the commercials on
the
TV.
Generations. And I mean, there's so much external pressure, not because like it's like, oh yeah, this looks good and I want to escape the life I'm living, right? Like that's one factor. Is like I work to vacation 6 days out of the year to come back to work to pay for the vacation that I just took. Miserable, right?
Yep.
So that's one thing, and then it's also like, you know, I'm feeling all of this pressure to conform to, like, it's not even for like in my instance, like for men, right? Like to attract people of the opposite sex. It's like to impress my girlfriends. Like that was the thing. Like for me, when I started really getting serious about personal finance, it was like, oh man, I haven't even been doing this. Like I've been doing this under the guise of like I'm self-care or whatever, you know.
You had a big, and I'm going to bring this up, you can cut it out
later
if you need to. You had a big thing with your nails.
I know.
You had to get your nails done all the time.
Right. It was part of my budget.
It's part of your budget.
I made it a part of my budget, but I wasn't saving for retirement. I wasn't saving for my emergency savings fund. And what ended up happening, I got severance from my job. You know, and then I was like, I'm going to start a personal finance platform, but I have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I had to reevaluate everything. You
redefined what's a need versus a want.
Right. Well, and I think too, it's like it got more down to the wire for me, you know, and I really did start, when I was faced with the need to have to look at those things, like, do I have to do it, you know? And then I realized, man, you know, I had been running around to all these appointments every fucking weekend, excuse my French, but like spent hours of my time doing these things. And like, it was because, you know, I saw my best friend have her nails and like, I wanted to be that cool or whatever it was. And it
social pressure,
right?
Consumer culture,
right? And like Amazon purchases.
Oh, Amazon is the
I mean, like
worst.
when I go through people's finances with them too, I'm like, and they have like, God, 6 cards racked up to the hilt, you know, and they're like swimming in it, and 29% interest rates on like all of them, and yet there's like Amazon purchases out the wherever, you know.
It's some plastic thing that like they'll use like twice, like an avocado cutter,
right.
You know.
Well, and that's the thing too, that like we watched this video in corporate social responsibility of business. It was a class I took in my last year in college, and we watched this video on how they make things now to last 6 months.
Yep.
And so that when they don't last anymore, you buy a new one.
Yep.
And they're not made to last, right? And so but they're cheaper, right? But then they just get thrown away.
But in the long run, you're just buying
more and more, and then like shipping, and you cost it, all of it, right? So, okay, so what are some other things? Do you, like off the?
There's one more that I can think of. That
I pulled some out. You know,
I had a couple of. Well, I had your nail thing, but but another person who's very close to me. I'm not going to be very specific, but called me and said, "I really need a new phone. I need a new phone." And my initial response was, "Okay, well, get you a new phone." And he wanted me to go through like, do I put it on a payment plan? Do I buy it outright? Do I, you know, how do I get it from Best Buy, or do I get it from AT&T, or do I get it from Verizon, or whatever? And I was like, well, just research which one you find.
He called you on the phone? No.
Yeah, he called me on his phone.
Wow.
On his phone that he had.
Yeah.
And we were discussing it, and I was like, well, okay. And I went through, okay, you want a new phone. Want a new phone.
Yeah, you got to that part, right?
I got to that part,
It was not a need, it's a want.
Well, and I was going through like the best options for him.
Right.
And then at the end of the discussion and everything, we had defined that he really can't afford to buy one outright, even though it would be close to like almost $400 cheaper. Like it was like $1,200 versus $800.
Right.
Like purchase price, the end purchase price. And So we decided, all right, you got to put it on a payment plan. It's got to be either like Best Buy card payment plan or AT&T payment plan. Turns out if you get the payment plan with Best Buy, it's 0% interest, but it's 0% interest until for a year. But then at the end of that year, if you don't pay the whole thing off, you owe all of the interest back for the entire year.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and he didn't.
That's where they get you.
That's where they get you.
Right.
And so we had to put it on, we decided to put it on AT&T. And then at the end of the thing, I was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this. And he was going to call AT&T and get a new phone and the whole thing. And I said, before you do that, what's wrong with your phone that you got right now? And he goes, well, nothing, but the new one's got 4 cameras on it.
Oh my God.
And I went, does it really take that better?
Are you a photographer for a living, or like what
no.
are you making the money
He's
with the photos? You just want to see everything that clearly, right?
Well, I think it's like you were saying.
Yeah.
Like my friends have the nails. I want the nails, and he's seeing in social media and online and all over the place, like, oh, they've got the new phone that does the 3D picture that goes around. Well, do you really need? I mean, you really need that.
Well, and I think too that what comes from that is like also dopamine, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
I think
dopamine,
like
yeah,
so many of us are like
same thing with
constantly
Amazon.
surging for the dopamine hit that comes from the spending, that it's like, oh, I got this nice new thing, but like literally, and I remember like from economics, like the utilization, satisfaction of the utilization, and like what I'm like, the term is escaping me, but
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Hopefully y'all know what she's talking about.
Yeah, we'll put it, we might have to edit it back in, but like, I'll just say, like, and you measure it in utils, so it's like the satisfaction. The satisfaction that you get from, like, and there's like a certain limit, so it's like I could eat like 6 bags of chips, right? But after a certain level, it's like 2 or 2.5.
I see what you're saying.
Like it kind of tapers off, and so like it no longer makes sense to keep eating bags of chips, because the satisfaction I'm deriving from any additional bag is not going to be worth the cost of taking it, right? And so, I mean, I think too, it's like in terms of like with the iPhones, and Apple has done an incredible job with the planned obsolescence. And you know, it's like every year they have a new model coming out, and like I can't even tell you what the difference between like the 12 and the 13 are. You know,
they always put an extra camera.
Oh, but and then with the charging cables, they're switching those on this next model, and it's like, oh boy.
And I've got an iPhone 7. So, like, I mean, what I've learned is don't update the software, and it doesn't disappear. Like, the battery life stays good and stuff like that. That's what I learned when I had my 6 before. The 7. Actually, I had a 4 before that.
No, but do some of your apps function the way that...
Fine. They're fine.
Really?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Interesting.
It gets a little slower as you go on, but it's really not... I mean, but sometimes we all need to slow down anyway.
I agree.
And delete Facebook from your phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I did that a long time ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Probably the best idea I've ever gotten from my friends. A couple of my other friends did the same thing, and it just improves your life so much. And also, I haven't had an Amazon account since before I was married. So like 5 years, 6 years. Yeah, I deleted that thing, and it keeps you off of Amazon buying junk that you don't need. Like because you don't get the free shipping on it. And you're like, oh, it's not really worth it. Which is kind of fun because you can get free shipping from Amazon if you buy more than $35.
It's like 20.
Is it 25 now?
Yeah, but it depends on how quick you want it to get there.
Oh,
if it's like tonight, you know, it's like $2.99.
Yeah, but if you can wait 3 days, it's free.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
like after a certain. So did he get the phone? Went with AT&T?
No.
He decided.
After I said, "What's wrong with your old phone? What's wrong with the phone you're on?" He goes, "Well, nothing." And I went, "Okay, can you afford the payment, the extra $100 a month or whatever it was that you were gonna have to pay for this phone?" And he goes, "Well, no, but I can pick up some extra shifts." And I was like, "Well, why are you working? Why don't you pick up some extra shifts and put that into the bank so that you can pay for it outright. Later on. You can just pay for it outright, and then it's $400 less.
Yeah.
And then you're saving $400, and you're saving more than that because you're saving the interest on that $400 between then and then.
I think this brings up a really good point because, I'm like, yeah. So in terms of like, say people are like really into this idea of personal finance all of a sudden, and they're listening and they're like, wow, this is great, I need to bring more awareness to it. What would you suggest to those people like who have these like impulsive mindsets, or like these, they're searching for the dopamine through the spending, or they're wanting to keep up with the Joneses, and now they're evaluating these things and they're realizing maybe this isn't as important to me as I thought it was? Or maybe like what advice or suggestions might you give someone who is wanting to pivot into living a more sustainable lifestyle, such as yourself, and what tools have helped you and strategies have helped you get there?
Well, so
you've been ingrained, like that's been ingrained in you, but I think too, like,
how do you change that mindset?
Right, like what would you suggest?
And I've tried several different things, and it's really helped the past, 2 weeks that I've been going through some of my friends' finances and some of my family's finances who think differently than I do, and trying to figure out how do you change the habit of going out there and just, oh man, I want that. I want that. I want that. Let's get the new phone. Well, why? Because your old phone's broken? No, it's fine. Well, you don't need that.
Well, I want the new shiny thing.
I want a new shiny thing. It sparkles, Right. Changing that mindset is extremely hard. And what I've learned is I didn't have that mindset to begin with. So I started investing when I was 18. Like, I started saving and investing when I was 18, and I already had that ingrained, like you said, ingrained in me, and I've just been doing that ever since. And so whenever I want to purchase a new truck or something like that, for instance, the Toyota that I had before this one, I had a car payment on it, and it was a pretty expensive car payment. I think it was like $400 for me at that time. It was like $400 a month. Well, I paid that car payment and paid off the truck, and then, or the Toyota, sorry. And when I paid that off, I thought to myself, well, I don't have anywhere for this $400 to go for the next month. I'm just going to put it into a separate bank account and keep paying that payment. And then when the Toyota blows up on me and it doesn't work anymore, I've got, at the very least, I've got a good down payment on a new car.
Right.
And as it turned out, I was able to buy the truck outright. Yeah. I had saved that much because of the length of that. But you never realize that you've got money just as long as you don't have somewhere for that payment to go. You don't have, oh man, now I can use that on, some new nails. And it's all of a sudden now it just goes away.
Well, and I think there's so many different shades of this, right? Because I remember living in a time in my life where it was like I would get my paycheck in and I didn't even know what my monthly expenses were. I just knew when I needed to pay them, right? And the day would come up and I'd see, oh, look at all of these numbers in my bank account. As long as I get this one and that one, I can subtract those, living and car, right? Then the rest I can but then I would forget, oh, I've got this utility bill or whatever, these things that pop up. But it's I think this was a while ago, and then it's okay, the next step for me was getting a clear picture of where my money is going every month. And so I would print out or pull up my 30 or 90 day bank statement, and I would just enter every single expense. I would start putting them in buckets, right? So each category is okay, here are my grocery expenses. I was smoking at the time, so here's my cigarette expenses, shit, I was an expensive habit, and my beauty expenses, therapy, all of these things, and I started seeing where everything was going, and it was okay. And you can really tell a lot about what somebody values by where their money goes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would say we vote with our dollar in every aspect,
I say that
right?
all the time.
And it's seeing all of those things and looking at, okay, well, I'm not happy with how much is going in this bucket. I want more to go in this one, and so every time I would like be faced with the decision, right, to go down this road and keep doing the same thing I've done, knowing what I know about my spending habits, or can I think about the thing that I really want to be spending that money on, and like kind of engage in like delayed gratification, if you will, rather than instant, because I think that's like where I think a lot of people get tripped up. It's like we're so living in the moment because we want to escape our current reality, you know? I think the worst thing is people just don't even look at their account.
Yeah, I look at mine once a week.
Or like
all of my accounts.
I do. I balance my books like every night.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I have people texting me at this point like, I spent this much on this much on this, like what they spent every day, and I love that level of accountability, which is like what I'm thinking, like I'm wanting to become the personal finance friend, right?
Yeah.
Like and I love that idea because there is this like level of accountability that comes from that. And I think with somebody who has healthy financial habits, once a week sounds pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you don't need more than that because you have a grasp on everything. There's not major changes happening, right? But yeah, I think too, it's like this pivoting away. Like, what would you say to somebody like in that moment when they're faced with, okay,
it's gonna suck.
Like, I have this awareness. I know that this is the thing I really, really want, but
they've got 5 credit cards.
Like, I can't. And I think it brings up a bigger question, like, what does it mean to actually afford something?
Yeah.
Right? Like, can I afford it because I have the $300 that's not allocated right now to go buy a whole new partial wardrobe for this season? Or like, what are my priorities? Like, if I don't have 6 months to a year's worth of expenses saved up, that money should definitely go there. That's what, like, once all of those bases are covered, I've maxed out my Roth IRA. I have my year's worth of expenses saved up, assuming I don't get the lifestyle creep going, right? Where the expenses keep going up or anything like that. Then maybe I could budget money for clothes or something like that. But what would you say to somebody like in that moment when they're really feeling that urge to like impulsively spend? Like, what?
To redefine what is a need versus a want. Do you want that or do you need that? I mean, that's the thing, is like,
how do you kind of filter like, here's need, here's want?
Well, that's where living lean comes in, and I'm very frugal. So I mean, I can live without a lot of stuff. For that 6 months or whatever, we were rebuilding the house. Stoney and I were rebuilding the house. We didn't have anything in the house. I mean, we had like a couch and I was sleeping on an air mattress. I didn't even have a bed at the house. So an $8 air mattress got me through 6 months. And going back even further, I mean, the thing that got me to buying that house was sleeping on my little sister's couch. And that involves a village. I mean, we all need to help each other a little bit here and there. But I saw an opportunity to save up, and it worked out to my advantage to have a really good friend that moved into a house and took a trade in rent for services, I guess, to help me rebuild the house. And really just having one of my really best friends contribute to a place that I was living in. It was so cool to have that, and my family contribute to that too. And then also my little sister letting me live on her couch. Like, hey, if this ever doesn't, we talked about it before we moved in, before she let me move in. But I was like, hey, if we start bickering and getting at each other's stuff, siblings, and we're pretty close, so in age and closeness. But I was like, if this ever gets to where we're like yelling at each other's stuff, I'll just get in the park. Let's just call it and get out. But it never we went the opposite direction. It was like, we got closer. It was like, we're in a confined space, but we kind of had our own lives going on. But we were both really, okay with it. But seeing something, living lean is my big thing. I just love the term living lean, and how far can you take it? If you can take it, like right now, like, do we really need toilet paper? I mean, look at this guy. That's a little too far. That's a little too far.
I mean, it's questionable. I know plenty of people that live like on, land that are sustainable. Yep. It's like, okay,
yep.
I mean, and I think that's really where like the conversation around like values comes in. It's like, okay, well, what is important to me, right? Yep. And like, I think too, I like the idea of making it like a game of like how lean can it go?
How can you go? How far can you go?
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like limbo, right? Like,
yep.
how low can you go?
Yep.
But okay, so let's see. I feel like we talked about that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of want to like talk about this idea of like external pressures, right? Like, I think there's like this element of like we talked a little bit about like everything coming from advertising and like societal pressures and buy this, buy that, keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, like, can you speak a little bit to your internal condition and like your serenity around like not needing to give into peer pressure, or like how do people like walk to the beat of their own drum, if you will, about like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, actively resist these pressures to fit in, right? Because I think there's like this level of insecurity that can come from
I was going to say,
right?
There's a lot of self-esteem.
And like, I want to empower people to know that like,
you're okay.
It's okay to not, it's okay to say like, I'm saving money right now, or that's not something I'm prioritizing in my budget or my time, or like I can't afford it, It's like, I mean, like, is there anything that you want to mention on any of that?
I mean, a lot of times these days we've got friends that say, okay, let's go eat at Polvo's, or let's go to a concert at ACL Live,
because it's just what everybody's doing.
It's what everybody's doing,
right?
Yeah, stuff like that. Go to a concert here, do this there.
We didn't plan for it, though, and so it's like a spontaneous thing.
Well, what I was going to say is if you've got friends that are making those comments like that, and it's kind of making you feel like, oh, I'm getting in a little over my head, like there's more money going out than this coming in. Yeah, which is another big thing with me, is like, always have more coming in than this going out. Mm-hmm. That's like number one thing. I should have said that right at the beginning. But when you've got friends that are doing that type of thing, you maybe make a suggestion that you have a potluck over your house. That's that you can make like some mac and cheese, and like everybody brings over a dish, and then you've got some fellowship, and like and you didn't go out and spend $30 per person on $60 per person on dinner, drinks, and margaritas
and that,
and
like
that.
The food wasn't even that great, and you just feel
not
like
at Povo's is awesome.
Well, no, but
I know what you're saying.
Right, like you leave feeling depleted when it should be something that you're feeling like revitalized by,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the difference between being rich and being wealthy.
You mentioned that, and I kind of almost, I know you've probably got a separate definition for each one of them, but I don't really separate them, and I also don't use money to identify those terms. Yeah. I haven't taken a raise in my job. I don't think I've ever requested a raise at my job. In 18 years.
Wow.
And they've given me one every now and then. They'll throw one at me like 5%, but sometimes it doesn't even cover inflation. But that's because money doesn't really, I know having enough of it makes it mean less. But money hasn't meant, is just having it just doesn't mean that much to me. So I kind of forget where I was going with it, but it just doesn't have the weight that I've seen it have on people.
So what I'm hearing you say is like wealth and like richness is more based in the quality of relationships in your life, happiness. And like the quality of life, and like overall serenity, internal condition on a day-to-day basis. Do I wake up and love what I do? And if not, like,
change it.
Right, exactly.
Because you got the power to do that.
Well, and I think too, like, it's really like, you can see people who have very low income, but they're still living beneath their means, and they can invest all of that money, and over time they've built generational wealth, but they, like haven't really gotten, a 50K raise over the past, like, whatever, and so I think there's like something to be said for that. It's like, okay, how to use your money wisely, and how to, again, live lean, and like just kind of do the bare minimum.
Oh yeah.
And I guess there's like an element of sacrifice. Like, can you see the joy and the beauty in life
rather than the joy and beauty in purchasing
things,
from Amazon?
Right. And so I think like putting the focus there, and I think for me, I get more reward in like investing time and energy in like the quality of relationships rather than the material things.
Well, so I just thought of this, and one of the best investments I've ever made is in a hummingbird feeder, and I just like, and so I bought 2 of them. So I got another one. I got one for the.
It says a lot.
It takes a lot for
I
me.
know.
Go down to Tractor Supply and go ahead and get you one, and then you start seeing that hummingbird. He's coming over there to you, and you've got to take care of him and like.
And then there's 2.
And then there's 2, and then they're fighting, and you're like, oh, I don't want him to have to fight. So you get another one for the front door, and so you've got one for the front door and the back door, and so now when I'm at my office, I can sit there and watch that little hummingbird. I call him Taquito, and Chimichanga on the back door, and they come in, and that's what was that hummingbird feeder? I think it was $7, and I tell you what, I get $7 of happiness out of that hummingbird feeder probably every minute.
Wow.
So if you calculate that,
right?
Like what are you spending on a therapist? Okay, well, get you a hummingbird feeder. No, that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, I think to weigh in those things. I think hummingbird feeders, like for me, therapy is a non-negotiable, just because of like things that have occurred in my life where it's I'm still working through a lot of those things. I've made huge leaps and bounds in progress, but
that's why I wanted to back that up.
That's like a non-negotiable for me, but like I think everybody experiences that in some way, and everybody has different preferences, but it's like, where can I get rid of the things that aren't serving me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Make the hummingbird feeder seats.
Everybody's gonna go out and buy a hummingbird feeder. Yeah. Okay, so then, all right, yeah, this is a good one. I remember seeing you on the news because you had called KXAN, which is our local news station, and you were talking to them about all of these stray dogs in your neighborhood, and they would come out of nowhere, and your inclination was that people were driving to the outskirts of town and dropping their dogs off because there's just no way, like, I mean, the amount of dogs that there were. And so, can you talk a little bit about that?
I actually, in the news story, I didn't actually say this directly, but I actually watched a couple of them do this.
Oh my gosh.
So, and that's heartbreaking. But
no
I didn't
kidding.
I didn't put it on because I don't know if there was like, the reporter kind of was like, you might want to stay away from like saying that you've actually seen this happen, because it's kind of like that's a may have some like criminal deals.
Keep it neutral.
Yeah, keep it kind of neutral,
right?
You know?
So that it's more educational and helpful.
Yes, and that's what we were going for anyway.
Right.
But
spreading awareness.
Spreading awareness, exactly. But just realizing that there's so many dogs out there, and I've got a very Hispanic neighborhood, and I know that there's a stereotype out there that the Hispanic neighborhoods, they don't take care of their dogs as much. Well, it turns out I talked to several of my neighbors, and it turns out that these are just stray dogs that they started feeding. They're not necessarily their dogs, so they're just trying to keep these dogs alive, but they're not their dogs, so they're not like getting them neutered or spayed or helping them if they've been hit by a car or shot, stuff like that. So it turns out that they don't actually own any of these dogs. They're not or part of their family. They're just trying to keep them alive.
Right.
And that's kind of detrimental to the population boom over there, because they're not taking care of them. So it just escalates. And so, yeah, I brought that up with KXAN, and Avery Travis really helped me kind of get into that situation. The animal lady, the Department of Animal Security, the Austin Department of Animal, Welfare, the director, she really told me what was going on, and I thought, gosh, what happened is we made the Austin Animal Shelter no kill, but when we did that, like 12 years ago or something like this, when we did that, we didn't put forth any extra money to the shelter to take care of the animals that are going to stick around forever.
Right. So
some of these dogs and cats and various animals in the animal shelter, they're not living a very good life at all, and a lot of them are in bad health and probably should have been put down a while ago. Just to if you think about it, do you want your grandmother living in a bed for years and years and years on tubes and stuff? And some of these dogs and cats are kind of like that. I'm the last person to put a dog down, but when my dog Booger, I found out she had cancer, and I found out that she was in pain. She was really not doing very well, and she had lived a pretty good life and everything. So it was my decision to go ahead and let her cross the Rainbow Bridge. Right. And I think that was best for her, because then she's not in that much pain. And she's not suffering. And a lot of these dogs and cats are in there and they're suffering. And also they get an influx of them, but they don't have any extra money from...
So the conditions
are really poor too. And there's nothing that they can do about it. But anyway, so I wanted to bring light on that, and just the fact that we end up with dogs in our area all the time, and we don't have anywhere to put them, because now the shelter is closed. You can't have random people bringing pets in anymore and dropping them off. They won't even take them. You can't even drop them at the door anymore, because they don't have anywhere to put them. So if you end up with a like a random stray dog or something, like if I ended up, there was one this morning, a brand new one that I don't rest. You kind of recognize the dogs that are in the neighborhood that are kind of roaming around down there. But there was a brand new one this morning who kind of looks like my dog, and I thought to myself, man, if he gets attached to the house, and I'm like, then where do I take him? Like I don't have anywhere to take him. I can take him. I can lie and take him to Bastrop, or take him down to Luling, or to another shelter.
But you don't want to be dishonest, and also it's like.
And it's not that county's problem. They don't have the funds to take care of it either.
Right.
Some of them that do have room in the shelter, it's because they have set forth funds that are taking care of their community in their area. And what are you doing taking one down there that's not from that area? You're just contributing to the problem. So...
Can you talk a little bit about, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
redirect.
What you just adopted two amazing puppies.
Yes, George and Waylon.
Yeah, and I am curious, like, can we talk a little bit about the responsibility of being a pet owner? And because I think it ties in really well with this idea of consumer culture and the disposableness of everything these days, you know, and it's like these are lives, like animals' lives, right? And for those who are listening that are like, oh no, don't euthanize them in the shelter, but it's like, okay, but how many of us know somebody who's adopted a animal, and then their significant other is like either allergic, or they can't go and live in this apartment, or like whatever, and it's like, what kind of forethought do people need to really put into, okay, I'm adopting an animal and it's going to be
a part of my family
for the rest of its life?
Yep.
So I mean, like, thinking into like, what changes could I make? So like, what have you discovered, and what things like have gone into making the decision to take care of your two puppies, and like adopting, and what does that look like to be responsible?
Well, it depends on the dog, but for my two guys, I specifically adopted two of them, because they were 4 weeks old when I adopted them. They had just been weaned off their mom, and that comes with a lot of finance issues. Like You've got to get them neutered. I mean, I got 2 boys, so
Right.
got to get them neutered when it's time, and you've got shots that you've got to take care of. That's, you know, and also when you get a dog spayed or neutered, or a cat for that matter,
Right.
do some research, because my vet, which is an awesome vet down in Lockhart, gave me a quote, and it was going to be like $1,000
Right.
for both of them. And so I called the rescue that I got them from. I was like, hey, do you have any suggestions on where I could take these guys to, like, they're trying to do like a pelvic scan, like they had all these additional things that they just lab work stuff, and you got to get lab work anyway, but they had all these like little ticks that you didn't have to have.
Right.
And she goes, oh yeah, oh the man, she was super helpful, and I had to drive for an hour. I went over to Dripping Springs and got them neutered, but I still go to my vet and get them shots once a year, and that's probably, you know, $25-50 for the rabies shots. And if you've got puppies, you've got to get the first set of shots, which is $25-50 every month for, you know, 6 months until they're done with them. Yeah. So I would say if you're planning financially, if you're planning on adopting a pet, you need to have, I would say just for one pet, you need to have like $2,000 set aside, just because then you've got toys, and you've got leashes, and you've got collars, maintenance,
depending on what kind of a pet it is, you know. And I mean, I've heard of people doing pet insurance, you know, so that when they take it in, if there's an emergency or something, it's not through the roof. Okay, so those are all good things to think about.
Well, and also, are you going to be there to love on your pet?
Right.
Because if you've got a full-time job and you're at the office for 10 hours a day,
right,
and then you go to the gym for 2 hours,
and then you're tired when you come home,
and then you're tired when you come home,
you don't want to go for a walk, and like, what about, is there a backyard? But like, you know, I don't know.
How much of a backyard is it? Yeah.
Right.
And pick up after your pet. Like,
right.
If you're in a residential area, I admittedly don't, because I've got 4 acres, and every now and then I'll go. If I'm going to have people over, I'll go around. But just having the 2 of them, like, there's not enough to really do that. But just be cognizant of the fact that it's a life that you're taking care of, you know. And
it's like more than a plant, less than a kid.
Yes. Start out with house. If you're thinking about a pet, start out with a house plant, move that to 2 house plants, and then when you've got a plant or 2 in every room, then start talking about a pet.
Right. Totally. Well, Kevin, this has been like an awesome podcast episode thus far. But you know, one thing that is shocking to me is that you're still single, no kids, and I think that honestly is really surprising for me, because you've got it figured out. You know, you've got a stable life, you've got a lot to offer. But what are you looking for in an ideal partner, since this is going to be airing, and who knows when I'll get famous? Yeah, like, gosh. But like, I'm curious. Yeah, like, just tell me a little bit about that, because
I've been toying with that, because I just got divorced last October, so almost a full year. And she's a wonderful woman. We just decided we just didn't. The road split, and she went one way and I went the other way.
Right.
And
but you want kids.
I would love to have kids. I know I'm getting a little older, so that ability is kind of.
It's different for men.
Yeah, it is different for men, but I still want to be like active with them. I want to play soccer with them. I mean, part of my land is devoted to building a soccer field or a football field, so I can have space for the kids to run around on, and have a blast, and a spot for them to go, fishing in the pond or stuff like that. That's what I want to build. Or that's what I have, and I think what I'm looking for, and I mean, I'm on all the dating sites, but really those things are pitiful.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah, and meeting someone at a bar or something is just doesn't work. Sometimes it does, but it just doesn't seem like those are the type of people that I really want to. I may meet her there, but that's not the stereotypical type of person. Kind of started going into church groups and and doing dance lessons and stuff with my roommate and stuff like that, to just get out of the whole bar scene and live music scene. And it's just kind of, it's so you just can't sit down and talk to somebody, you know, and find out who they are and stuff. But I think, how would I define somebody that I'm looking for? And I'd say a real partnership. Like, I'll just simplify it. If I'm out there mowing the lawn, offer to weed eat. Or if you're out there mowing the lawn, or I'll offer to weed eat.
Hands on. Have each other's backs.
Yeah. If you're cooking dinner, then I'm cleaning the dishes. If you're sweeping the floor, then I'm mopping the floor.
Yeah.
Then if you're doing this, then I'm doing that. And we're chipping in wholeheartedly together. And the thing that I realized with my ex-wife, and she may kill me if I say this out loud, but I love her to death. But I really do. She's a good person. But what I realized is my standard of living is a lot higher than some other people's. And also,
you run a tight ship.
I run a tight ship. I probably should have been in the military because I've got these
I'm
little
always
things.
surprised that you weren't. You know what I mean?
Well, I've got these like little things that I do, like on the 1st and the 15th, I clean the house, sweep and mop the house.
Doesn't matter, and it's like 9 in the morning, and you're done mopping the house.
Yeah,
it's like.
Yeah.
There could have been a party the night before.
And that's what I'm doing on the 1st and the 15th, no matter what. And then in mowing season, I mow. I've got
a tractor, right?
Yeah, I've got a tractor, and now I've got a 0-turn mower. Super excited about that.
Wow, congratulations.
Well,
great investment.
It's a great investment for that land, yeah. But, and the way I kind of construct my week is Mondays, I do all my computer stuff, finance stuff, like we said earlier. Tuesdays an outside day, so I do projects or weed eating or trim the bushes or plant some trees. Obviously, I planted too many of them. But and then Wednesday is an inside day again, and you do like some inside laundry or do the dishes that didn't get done the night before, and go ahead and run the dishwasher and stuff like that, which I almost do every day. And then Thursday is an outdoor day again, and go build something, so I've kind of I've got a very structured lifestyle.
Right.
And I figured out that with my ex-wife, she's very spontaneous. Like, the floor looks dirty, let's sweep it today. But it doesn't have to be done. Like, even if the floor doesn't look dirty on the 1st, I still sweep it.
Right.
I still do it, or around the 1st. Sometimes it does.
That consistency and routine.
Yeah, the routine.
So that's a big factor.
Huge factor, routine. Yeah.
Yeah. Smart, funny, beautiful.
Yeah, of course.
Wants to have kids. Okay, so ladies, if you are interested, you can contact me directly and I'll set you up with Kevin. No, but seriously, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been wonderful having you, and I think we should do a follow-up if we have the opportunity.
Absolutely.
to. And
roundabout tax season, let's do it.
Yeah,
I love doing tax stuff.
That's great. Yes, let's do that. For those of you who will be tuning in next Wednesday, I'm going to be having Jeff Quaid on the show. He is a former professor of mine from St. Edward's University, and he was the VP of HR at Cisco Technologies. And we're going to be talking about what to look for as a candidate and through the hiring process. And so you won't want to miss that either. And that'll be airing at 10 a.m. And I hope you all have a wonderful week.
Bye, y'all.